Well, this break is a lot smaller than between episodes 1 and 2. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. In the last part, we went through the desert after exploring some of the new additions to Super Turbo Championship Edition, namely the canal area and El Intenso, and now we're back in Pueblucho because we need to apparently get X-talby's help to defeat Kalaka for some reason. We'll see later on in this part. Also, weird detail, I love that the sun is completely black in the dead world, as we can see here in the agave fields. That just looks really cool. Now, since we're also back here in Pueblucho, we can also now do a few things, because not only are we here in the dead world, we're here at a point where we can have more abilities than we were last year, rather. So we can actually grab a couple items that, well, actually more like one item that we couldn't grab before, but we can also start up this side quest. When I was alive, I used to live in this house. I always enjoyed playing with my favorite toy, a luchador action figure. It was the most fun to play with. I guess we'll help get that to her in some way, I guess. Now, if you want to progress, you want to head into this next house, because it's a house that's completely blocked off in the world of living, but not so much here. However, we have to head over to El Presidente's mansion and grab this money chest. And that's actually, I think, the first area you can easily reach 100% in, because getting 100% in an area is an achievement. I don't think there actually is one for all areas, though, from memory. I might be wrong about that, though. But now that we have the frog slum, we can fully explore this little cave. So let's see what we got down here and here. Luchador, how did you find me here? I'm not really in the mood. I've got a headache. Just leave me to my loneliness. You want me to help you? You men are all the same, charming and available when you want something, but completely occupied as soon as some annoying, entitled, prissy trout enters the picture. Just like that jerk Kalaka! Luchador, I'm sorry to lose my composure. I'm just not used to being so neglected. Is it too much to ask for a little affection? We can all be lonely at times, can't we, Luchador? In need of some tenderness, some emotion, some arousal? I have never said yes to this, so I don't know what happens. Of course. How can I expect any sort of empathy from a feeble-minded brute? How utterly disappointing. Soon you'll be my slave. Then I can have some real fun. And time for, I think, our first actual boss fight, because the Albresia was more or less just a chase sequence. X-talby loves teleporting all over the place, and she shoots out fireflies in a circular pattern that you cannot dodge or do anything with, because they have the purple and white glow, meaning, well, they're undodgeable. However, we need to hit her while she's firing these out to actually damage her. If we knock her to the ground, we can get some extra hits on her, and then she'll just teleport away. This fight is a bit annoying, mostly just due to the fact that you're constantly keeping an eye on where she's teleporting, and when she teleports into the top center of the room like that, jump up, because she's going to swap the arena from the world of the living to the world of the dead and vice versa. When it swaps to the reddish hue, that means there's going to be spikes on the floor and you need to jump up onto the platform to dodge those. Despite being overall useful in normal fights, El Intenso doesn't get too much use in boss fights in this game from my memory, because the bosses already take pretty good damage from standard 1. Only use it if you're low on health. Eventually, around the halfway point, though, things are gonna swap up in her pattern. Just give up, Luchador. Your fate is sealed. You will not leave this cave alive. And now she likes to do little hops like that for some reason, and I don't know why, but I really like that animation. She's completely invulnerable when she's doing any of the teleport moves, by the way, so watch out for that. She doesn't even actively really attack you that much, aside from this thunder attack, which is pretty telegraphed, but I still have a hell of a time dodging. How amusing that you presume to have the strength to defeat me. Many men have come to my lair before you. Their skulls adorn the walls. And now she does Shadow Clone Jutsu. Each one of the clones will have a different colored shield that we need to take out. However, each clone doesn't actually contribute to the health bar. They have their own smaller health bar. The moment you throw them, they will die. This is more or less meant to be a way to try and drain your health before the actual fight continues. I think the shields they have are randomized, but I'm not entirely sure about that. In fact, that's the thing with the game in general. I'm not sure if the shields with enemies are set or random depending on where they are. If they're in like a kill them all kind of situation, like any of the fighting rooms, they're probably set, but in the stages, I'm not exactly sure. And now the fight begins, and she has the third type of shield that the clones didn't have. Hitting her in this phase can be kind of annoying just because you have such a limited time to hit her. The moment that she hits the ground and she's standing up, she is teleporting away, and you need to keep your eye on where she's going next. Plus, in the case you suck at hitting her, like, say she does that multiple times in a row, she can easily gain back her shield. On the whole, she's not a hard boss, but she might surprise you with some of her damage or if you're not paying attention. Oh, Luchador. Perhaps I underestimated you, but I think we're just in different places right now. I will spare your life. You know, Carlos wasn't always such a bad guy. He was once handsome and brave, not unlike you. Maybe you would like to hear his story. Before he became Calaca, Carlos was known as El Charro. People called him the pinnacle of Charreria. Only one event had eluded him, La Gran Charrera. He was willing to do whatever it took to win it. The night before the competition, Carlos broke his arm. He was devastated and did the unthinkable. In exchange for his soul, Carlos won the competition. But just before he could claim his glory, his flesh rotted and he was dragged into the world of the dead. Carlos felt cheated. He never got the glory he wanted so badly. He swore he would have his revenge. Carlos challenged the devil to a cockfight. The devil always liked challenges. With my help, Carlos turned the devil into a rooster. And took over the world of the dead. He plans to merge it with the world of the living. To enslave everyone. To make everyone praise him. Maybe that trout was right after all. I deserve someone better than Calaca, and someone needs to stop his sorry ass. Calaca and Flameface have taken Presidente's daughter to the top of the Temple of War, no doubt for another one of their asinine rituals. To reach the temple, you must first ascend the great Tule Tree, growing from within the forest, but this will require the ability to traverse dimensions. Allow me to bestow this power upon you. And we got Dimension Swap. That was easy, wasn't it? Now just plus right trigger or right bumper, the power is yours. You know what? It never goes well with these bad boy types. What if the nice Frey III is single? And as the ability name suggests, we can now freely swap between the world of the dead and the world of the living, and this allows us to go for somewhat of a, not an Ikaruga, but it's the first thing that comes to mind, where certain enemies and platforms can only be used or damaged in the respective dimension. So we're going to be constantly swapping between them for combat and puzzles from here on out. And not gonna lie, this is where I think the game really starts to shine, because the platforming puzzles they start to have that combine all your abilities with the swapping of dimensions is really good. And thankfully, unlike some other games where swapping worlds has a load time or has this long cutscene, it's just snap your fingers, you're there. Yes, that was a very, very aimed complaint at Metroid Prime 2. Ugh. With this, we now have quite a few more items we can grab throughout the world, but as with before, I'm more or less saving everything for unless it's in my way directly. Oh yeah, she mentioned the friar. We should probably go talk to him, see how he's doing. But first, we can now come into here and grab whatever's down here. As soon as I press the right button. And we got another Intenso fragment. Not gonna lie, the Intenso fragment's probably my favorite design out of all of the items. It's worth noting, since I recorded the last part yesterday, I have since actually started Guacamelee 2. I'm much too old to be going on adventures anymore, but I can bestow a small blessing of the Chicken King to aid you on your journey. Yeah, it's a bit of a thing. If you're low on health and you're near Pueblucho, you can actually talk to the friar to get a bit of an HP boost. Not by much, but it's there. Guacamelee 2 so far seems pretty snappy, by the way. Anyway, let's go into this house, go down here, swap dimensions, and we can grab that little girl's luchador figure. So let's give that to her to wrap up this side quest. That's my luchador figure. I'm so glad my mommy kept it. Gracias, senor. Here's a present for you. It can be your own toy. I hope you like it. There's something oddly sad about a little girl giving me a piece of her heart when she's already dead. It certainly is quiet in the house these days. I just can't bring myself to get rid of her favorite toy, though. So I kept it in the cellar under the stairs. Stairs? Stairs. Yeah, suddenly those lines of dialogue from the first part make more sense, don't they? Also, I don't know why I'm heading towards the agave. Actually, you know what? I do know why I'm heading towards the agave field. I'm always a bit iffy on what ability I need to get the things that are near Juan's house. But we can't get it until the next part at the least, I want to say. Anyway, with that, we're supposed to head into the forest now. However, I'm going to travel through the forest back to Santa Luchita, because now that we have the dimension swapping, not only can we do the next section of the Caverna de Pollo, but we can now finish off quite a few of the side quests that are there. Plus, since we got the Frog Slam, there's a new combo chicken set we can do. However, I'm not going to cut this out because reasons. For the most part, it's actually because this part in recording was about 15 minutes longer, but due to me editing out load times as well as me checking my notes for stuff and such, I was pausing a bit and just taking too long. Plus, there was one particular instance where I did a minor mistake. I'll talk about that more when it becomes more prevalent in a few moments, though. I'm not going to say the rest of this part's side quests, but you could probably, if you're only here for plot, you could probably skip the next 10 minutes at the least. Because one thing I do like about this game's side quests is that while there aren't many of them, doing them all in a bunch can actually still add a bunch to your game time. Because side quests are an iffy thing in games, where you either have too few and they don't really matter, you have too many and they don't matter, you have too many and they all matter, which means that there's way too much to the game to begin with. I'm looking at you, Xenoblade 2. Well, Xenoblade 1 and 2, actually. And then you have games like this in Chrono Trigger, where there's relatively few, but they not only add some decent game time, but they also overall feel like they matter. Because in this game's case, we get stuff like heart pieces, stamina pieces, so on and so forth. Also, there's a chest up there I think I could get right now, but I don't do it until later. I will say something you might also see me doing from here on is when I'm just traversing through rooms like this and there's nothing to do, I might end up swapping dimensions just to give my hand something to do. Either way, our first notion of business here in Santa Luchita, we got the chilies from the person in the dead world last part, so now we can finish off the enchilada side quest. So let's head on over to her place, Isabella's. Hello there. Gracias, senor. You're now part of history. You've helped me create the world's largest and best enchilada. And we get a heart piece for that. Sadly, we don't get to see what this enchilada looks like. But, at least we got something. Next up, there's a side quest that I believe I talked about earlier, but now we can actually completely do at the house just to the east of Isabella's, the Super Siesta. What's going here? Is anyone there? They were building this house, and I guess I didn't move fast enough, so they built it around me. How incompetent of a construction worker do you have to be to do that? Hello? If you know a way to move through walls, that'd be swell. Well, we have this now. Ah, cute. I am error. Seriously, though, I clearly don't belong here. Tell my sister that I'm fine. She doesn't have to worry about me. I rather enjoyed standing off to the side of empty rooms. Get it? It's a Zelda reference. It's one of the most famous gaming franchises. Thanks for finding Error. He's fine where he is now, and at least I know he's safe. Thanks for going through all that trouble. Here, I don't know what it's worth, but please accept this as your reward. And for that we get another heart piece. I do believe, even though these aren't in chests, that these count for the area's percentage. Because if you look at the map on the top right, there's a percentage marker. That's not your overall game percentage. That's the percentage in the area you're in. And now it's time for combo chicken. And this is where doing combos starts to take a while. So for the most part, if I fail, I'm cutting to my successful attempt. As you can see, the combos are starting to get kinda long. Thankfully, since your stamina recovers so quickly, you don't have to worry about too much. I do believe that it's very possible for you to run out of stamina on some of these, though. I think they have a minimum stamina requirement of at least 4. Yeah, that's... Actually, no, that's all 5. Yeah, they require you to have some stamina for these, so make sure you've gotten some stamina pieces. I want to say on my original playthrough of Gold, this is the combo that took me the longest, just because whenever they involve dodge rolling into your combo chickens, it gets annoying because you need to make sure you're placed at just the right point that your dodge roll won't leave you out of range for Poncho. And now it's time for the Caverna de Pollo. And this is me checking, yeah, I can't do anything in this room yet. That involves a side quest for later on. Now, technically speaking, difficulty-wise, you should have been able to do this next Caverna de Pollo sequence since probably around the time you've entered the desert. However, getting to the second enemy barrage requires having dimension swap, so... it seems kind of ill-placed in my eyes. I think this probably should have been more safeguarded you between the next one and such. But as I mentioned back in part 1, from now on we're actually speeding these up and adding music, and, well, playing some Metabots music because I need to always remember that game. On the whole, this one does have everything we've had so far, be it the cacti enemies, the chupacabras, shields, so on and so forth. I think they even throw in a Intenso charged Alux in there somewhere. But Intenso on the whole makes these sections a lot easier than they were in the original Guacamelee, just because you have an extra source of damage. Plus, admittedly, if you do go for the Intenso abilities as soon as you can in the shop, like the one that breaks a shield in one shot, you don't need to worry too much about them. Or at least you'll have less of a worry to have. Like I said last part, though, I'm more or less saving the Intenso abilities for last, since I like using... I like upgrading Standard Juan to begin with, mostly because he's what I'm using for the most part anyway. Like I said last part, I'm the kind of player that in Devil May Cry likes to use my Devil Trigger if I'm low on health, or if there's way too many enemies around me. Admittedly, we are getting a lot of the upgrades already done. There's not too many of them left. But that does go into the thing I said last part, where money past a certain point is kind of useless in this game. And in Guacamelee 2, it looks to continue that, because Guacamelee 2 has more of an upgrade tree for its money to be used on, where you meet various trainers throughout the game and you get certain abilities through them. Some of them have specific things like find X amount of stamina chests, have this many 100 hit combos, so on and so forth. And I actually like that design a lot because at least it keeps your eye on something and you'll be able to save up your money more. Simultaneously, though, it feels like it might be pointless in the long run at the same time because you're probably gonna get all your upgrades at the same time. Hey there, guess what? I found some treasure. Want to see it? Oh no, the chicken thief has struck again. He stole my treasure. Please, find him and catch him. Now, this actually took me some time to find on my first playthrough. For some reason. We need to go to the very first house we see in Santa Luchita, the empty one. And something I don't think I've mentioned thus far is that if you look in the background of this, in the picture frame, you can see Booster from Mario RPG. Hey, come back here, chicken. You think you're so smart finding my hideout? Well, you never catch me. Alright, time for a little mini game. You think all chickens look alike, don't you? What's a good thing for me and a bad thing for you? Yuck, yuck, come on, boys. And now we just have one of those follow the right target thing. In my experience, for some reason this chicken really likes to choose the third spot. But not bad. Let's see what happens when we speed things up. There are 3 rounds in this and he gets progressively faster. However, I immediately get sent into a pattern because he's the third one again here, and I go for the third one on the third attempt, and I get it wrong. Thankfully, if you fail, you can just talk to him to retry. There's no real punishment here. Just do it over and over again. Law of averages, you should get it eventually. You have a 33% chance anyway, so might as well. Your eyes aren't so good, are they, hombre? Cluck, cluck. We knew you couldn't do it, but yup. So let's actually get this correct. And I almost got it wrong, too. Holy Bjork, you caught me! Hey, watch your very poorly hidden language. Even with all our ancient Pollo tricks, we still couldn't fool you. Looks like my days of stealing and hoarding people's stuff are over. Fine, Luchador, take your prize. Bjork, Bjork, Bjork! And we get another heart piece for that. However, for those of you going for the... I think it's called the Lore Master achievement, where you do all the side quests. You're technically not done with the side quest yet. We do need to go talk to that guy again to turn the quest in and mark it as completed. We have the reward from it already, but the quest itself isn't completed. That's just one of those kind of, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's kind of tedious things. You got the treasure back, and it helps you get stronger. That's great. You keep it. The whole reason I started looking for treasure was to find someone that could help El Presidente's daughter. Now go get her back. You can do it. Alright, and with that, we're now done with our business here in Santa Luchita. We can head back to the forest and head over to the Tule Tree area that we were told to go to by X-talby. And we've actually seen the entrance to this area before. We saw it along the way to meeting Chivo for the first time, right down there. However, it's one of those things I kind of taunt you with, where you see the entrance, but you can't do anything about it for a while. Kind of like that power bomb door in Crateria in Metroid Zero Mission. You know, we all know the one. I think it leads to... Does it lead to Chozodia? No, yeah, it leads to Chozodia. Also, one thing I'm not entirely sure about, because you see me doing it all the time, I'm not sure if in this game it's faster to dodge roll all over the place rather than walk. I think it's overall faster to turn to a chicken and walk, but for some reason, mostly just for the fact I can't really fight while I'm a chicken, I tend not to do that. I think it might just be my inner God of War speaking, where if I combat roll and then dodge, I think that's the fastest method of movement in God of Wars 1 through 3. Although I think the Spartan charge also helps with that in some of the later games, like you roll, jump, and charge or something like that. I forget. God of War 2018 didn't really have a faster movement method aside from sprinting. At least the fast travel helped to an extent. Oh, that reminds me, the New Game Plus update for that just came out. I should probably play that to see how it works, mostly to get the new armor, though. And welcome to the Tule Tree, or Tule Tree, I don't know. And this is probably one of my favorite areas in the game, design-wise. Because this entire area is just the tree. It's more or less one giant vertical section. And some of the best platforming in the game, in my eyes, is here. You're gonna be dimension swapping a lot, so make sure you keep your finger on those triggers, or bumpers, whichever one you prefer to use. I don't know why precisely. That was grammar. But for some reason, the dimension swap can be used with either the right bumper or the right trigger, but the Pollo power from memory can only be used with the left bumper. I think that's because there might be something later on, I honestly forget, that uses the left trigger. It's been a while, so if I'm getting that stupidly wrong, I apologize. I've played this game a couple times, yes, but at the same time, it's been a while. That I remember mostly the early game stuff pretty well, but the later game stuff I'm a bit iffy on. This is also one of the areas I think you can get some of the most items in on the first try. There's definitely one thing we can't do on the first visit. In fact, you can't do it until right before endgame, basically. But it's one of my favorite rooms in the game, and those who have played the game probably know what I'm talking about. As they also wince in pain, that is. One thing I do find myself doing pretty often with the dimension swap, though, is pressing the button one time's too many, because it's admittedly really satisfying to press that button and have that visual go on. I don't know exactly why, but it causes my brain to just do it one more time than I should. Plus, if you're not paying attention, there are some little dimension swap puzzles where they intentionally place, like, if you say you're on a row of platforms that vanish and reappear depending on what dimension you're on. Say they alternate it, like living world, dead world platforms, so on and so forth, for like 5 platforms. This is that game that will trick you up and have 2 dead platforms in a row so that you fall down into a pit and have to restart the entire thing. Thankfully, this isn't one of those games that will punish you with death, but it will still punish you, so make sure you're still paying attention to what you're doing and don't just get too set into a pattern. Because I am someone who can very easily get set into a pattern. And now we have a little puzzle room trying to get this hard piece. Just look for the blocks that have nothing on them. Because those are the ones you're safe in to transfer into, because thankfully you don't take damage if you swap between living and dead world and you're inside of something. It'll just immediately swap back. It's kind of like in A Link to the Past. When you use the magic mirror, if you magic mirror into where something is, it'll just warp you back into the light world. Or the dark world, rather. I'm not exactly sure why, though, because I'm thinking about my experience in the first playthrough. Despite being the not most generic, but most by-the-numbers area, this is probably the area that always stuck with me the most. Probably because it has some of the best platforming, admittedly, but there's just something about that. You'd think for a game based entirely in, like, Mexican myth and culture, that something more like Mexican temple, like the Temple of Rain, or some of the boss fights would stick out more. But no, it's just the platforming in a tree section. That's one thing that Guacamelee 2 looks to be doing better from my experience. So far, at least. I'm only in the first major dungeon at the moment. I'll probably be playing more while this video renders, actually. And I'll probably have the game beaten by the time we reach the next celebration mark. Admittedly, I think I mentioned it last part, which was yesterday, I know. But Metroidvania games probably aren't the best things for me to do as a celebratory series like this. Mostly because there's such a gap between videos sometimes, I can forget where I was going and such, or what's around me. Metroidvania games on the whole are probably games that are better recorded and such in not one straight sitting, but like one recording session after another like that. Because then you have a better grasp of what's around you. And now we start to have these enemies. I forget what their name, exploders. These guys are dangerous because if the countdown above them hits 0, they do explode, and it will cause damage to you no matter where you are on the screen, if I recall correctly. I forget if these ones do it, but definitely the larger variations of them, because they come in 2 different sizes. I think they might instant kill you. So you need to restart the entire section. Or at least the entire fight. Which is annoying to say the least, but if you focus just on them, you don't have as much to worry about. I have a lot of silver. I could probably very easily buy a costume. And there's a couple of costumes I have my eye on for this LP, namely the chicken one, because I think there's an achievement for talking to one of the giant chickens with that. And some of the tostada ones, because when I played the game myself, as I think I mentioned last part, I do prefer to use Tostada because I just like her better as a design. Though that's one thing I think Guacamelee 2 improved on. The costumes are now just purely aesthetic costumes, so you don't have the extra abilities, but at the same time, you kind of lose out on some playstyle stuff to do that. Well, well, well. Long time no see, Luchador. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, man. That statue, it used to be at the base of the Tule Tree. I brought it all the way up here, and you've returned it into a pile of rubble. Somehow, I'm not surprised. Anywho, you can now double jump. Just press A while in there. The air, not the air. It's as it says, it's a double jump. It's not like some other games where your momentum gets canceled. You carry basically all your momentum with you, and it's more or less just a slight jump extension. It's not like a complete doubling of your height. However, if you combine the double jump with, say, the rooster uppercut, you can very easily double your jump height. You can't double jump as a chicken, though. Not sure why that would be important, but it's, I guess, important to note. With that, we can actually now more accurately explore a lot of the desert, if I recall, but we have other things to do. We can also now climb up walls in much wider areas like this with the double jump. That doesn't come up that much, though. And if you want that heart chest, you actually want to go to the left first, because up here is actually one of the more annoying encounters in the game. Because, well, let's put it like this, they gave you this charge of loops for a reason. Did someone say a bunch of exploders all on top of each other? Thankfully, when you're in Intenso, you don't need to worry about them too much. As when you're normal one, you break a shield, you'll do damage as well, yes. But when you're Intenso, the exploders have so little health that you'll just kill them outright. That's why they give you that charge of Lukes, to make this a lot less annoying. Because if I'm recalling correctly, in the original Guacamelee, this was exactly the same. I say if I'm recalling correctly for a good reason, though, because like I've said, it's been a while since I played Gold. Now, one achievement I'm not exactly sure of where the best place to get is in Guacamelee is the 200 hit combo one. It seems like it would probably be best to do that in one of these little fighting arenas, but I'm not exactly sure which one would be best for that. For all I know, I've probably already passed it, but I guess I'll find out later on, or probably not. And that's a rare silver chest that contains nothing but silver. There's not too many of those in the game. And now I'm realizing, wait, forgot the heart chest, let's go back and get this. And this is one of the more annoying heart chests to get in terms of what you have to do. You have to jump through this first vine and actually use the dodge button, not the thing. Oh, wait, that's right. That's why you can't use the rooster transformation with the left trigger. It's because that's your dodge button. Dumbass Kyle. Sometimes I say things, and I just am forgetting the complete obvious. Did I just say completing the forget obvious? I think I almost did. I can speak the English really well. Can you tell it was my first language? Ah, man. Everyone gets those moments, admittedly, where despite knowing the language their entire life, they somehow screw it up worse than anything, really. There's no real comparison for it. Also, something that I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's because it changed the resolution around or something. I don't know entirely. But compared to the first part of Guacamelee, where I did the commentary that over like 3 days, both part 2 and this, I am doing over 1 day. I think because I changed the resolution, maybe it doesn't cause my editor to have as many issues, or maybe some drivers updated or something. I don't know, but thankfully, I am able to keep my thoughts more in line and stay on one note. This is one of the stranger rooms in the Tree of Tule because it's just one giant room of platforms. There is a stamina piece to get in here, admittedly, but on the whole, this room feels kind of weird compared to everything else. Because this, it reminds me of an area in Super Paper Mario, actually, I think that was Chapter 2. It may have been Chapter 3, though. I honestly forget. It was the one that had the chameleon as the boss, though, and you didn't have Tippy for the entire thing. That may have been Chapter 2 now that I think about it. It's been a while since I played Super Paper Mario. It's my favorite Paper Mario, but it's been a while. I don't know, maybe just because the rest of the game is fairly close quarters, cramped areas, that a giant open area like this kind of stands out. but this room's just never been a favorite of mine. Doesn't help that chupacabras are annoying pieces of shit that need to die. Why is it always the flying enemies that have projectiles that are the most annoying? Especially because usually their accuracy isn't too good, but the chupacabras for some reason, especially in combat situations, are very accurate. At this point, I believe we're at the top of the tree. Yep, let's frog slam through here and see what we got here. Joke's on you this time, Luchador. Because you'll get nothing. No power. Oh yeah, by the way, the dude behind me will lead you to the Temple of War. Okay, you actually get a trophy, by the way, for that fake Chuzu statue. That's just a bit of a funny joke. They almost make it seem like there was a power there in Guacamelee Gold, but no, there wasn't. That was still a fake Chuzu statue there. In fact, the joke was accentuated because the Chuzu statue was sideways. Its back was leaning on the floor, which was just hilarious to me. Though I suppose that does also go into something, because I was looking at some footage of Guacamelee Gold. Something I guess I just never quite realized about this game is that they also changed a good amount of the graphics. Or at least, they updated them. Because some things that are now like trees that swap between dimensions are now, or no, that are trees now were once just standard like stone blocks and such. There were refinements I didn't even notice about the game, which is good. And here we get a heart piece, and we're actually directly to the right of where we first got turned into a chicken. So if you want to do some more exploring in the desert right now, you can, but I'm just going to head right on over to the temple. Which I should mention, by the way, we're not finishing the temple this part. There's thankfully a good place to stop right towards the end of it. And I apologize for that, but that's just the way it ended up working out. My usual hour-long thing kind of screwed the pooch there, but oh well. And welcome to the Temple of War, an area I frankly forgot existed. Which is odd, because aesthetically it's one of my favorite areas. The cool thing about this place is, between the two dimensions, water becomes lava and vice versa. And as I mentioned last part, lava is the one obstacle that doesn't just set you back to the platform you were last on. It outright will kill you. Or at least make your HP get reduced to 0 and you have to restart the room. I guess it might actually reset you to your last checkpoint, technically. And now we have a new gimmick, White Shields. White Shields can be broken with any attack as long as there's attacks in succession. If you wait too long, the hits will regenerate and you need to break them again. And if the shield is gone for too long, I think it just outright regenerates completely. And we get this new enemy who likes to have swords. These enemies are actually pretty annoying when they're in mass, because not only can they dodge a lot away from your attacks, but their stab attack can interrupt when you're attacking another one, and this weird... I don't know why Rafflecopter is the first thing that comes to mind attack. It's surprisingly annoying just because not only does it leave them invulnerable, but in the case you're right next to them when they're doing it, you're probably going to get hit if you're fighting another enemy. The Temple of War, though, its main gimmick involves us swapping around as usual. However, it also loves to put a lot of blocks in our way for some reason compared to some of the other dungeons. I really shouldn't call these dungeons, because Metroidvania games don't really have dungeons per se. Hi, Giant Chicken. Hey man, if you get lazy while on a wall, push into it to cling on tight. Yeah, your cousin told us that back in the Temple of Rain. Compared to the Temple of Rain, this place's major gimmick is on platforming and wall jumping from one thing to another, swapping dimensions as needed. And honestly, there's some pretty good platforming here too, but the Tule Tree is honestly better for it in my eyes. Though I think this is the one dungeon in the game that comes to mind, I hesitate to use the word dungeon again, but that has outright split paths that loop around to each other. Because standard Metroid-like games like this tend to do a thing where branch paths just lead to dead ends with items and such. Not too many do a thing where the paths loop into each other, like a proper Metroid game would. And some of the Castlevania games, obviously. Mind you, I haven't played too many of the indie ones, admittedly. I have Hollow Knight, and I still need to play that. Soon, I swear. And Owlboy hasn't really done anything like that. In fact, Owlboy, for what's considered a Metroidvania, is extraordinarily linear thus far. But, again, I haven't beaten the game, so I don't have the full idea of what the level design does and such. Admittedly, something I haven't really talked about with Olmec's Headbutt is that it's actually really useful for separating enemies because the knockback from it is so extreme. If you're too close to another one of these guys like that, you can just knock the other one away very easily with the Olmec's Headbutt. And their Rafflecopter attack, as I called it earlier, doesn't have much of a chance to reach you. I don't know what it is, though, about areas that are both fire and water that I just love so much. Because that's a common theme, like in Banjo-Tooie, Hailfire Peaks. Hate 100% that area, but I love the area itself. Maybe it's just the, not nigh impossibility, but the contrast of the area that I like so much, because not only do you get a good amount of red colors, but you get a good amount of really gentle blues and such. Plus, the temperature thing, I don't know why, I just like it. There are some things you just like, and despite all the reasoning you try to find for it, you just can't quite explain it. It's kind of like me in the Super Mario Brothers movie. There's no reason I should like it, but I do. It's not good, but I love it. Unlike the Street Fighter movie, which actually does have reasons to like it. And the Mortal Kombat movie. At least the first Mortal Kombat movie. Not so much the... I'm forgetting the name of the second one. That's a good thing because that movie is complete shit, but... that's gonna bother me now. What the hell was it called? Mortal Kombat Movie 2. Annihilation! I was thinking Apocalypse, but no, I'm thinking of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, the third 3D one. Well, the third of the fully 3D fighters, not like Mortal Kombat 4 kind of 3D. Admittedly, though, this area also showcases something that I have a habit of doing in Metroidvanias, in where if I go down an area and it looks like the right pathway, I will outright backtrack. And because, like I said, there's an area in this temple that loops around, I find myself distracted. There's also one thing I do like about Guacamelee in that I mentioned that money becomes pointless past a certain point, yes, but at the same time, money's very easy to come by in the game at the same time. So I don't find myself worrying as much, I guess. Mind you, comparatively, I don't know how long Guacamelee 2 is, but Guacamelee 1 isn't the longest game in the world, so it doesn't matter that much to begin with. You'll probably, especially in gold, where there's generally, I think, less money, just be able to afford everything by the end of the game. Because we're not quite at, like, the... I'm trying to remember how far into the game we are. I don't want to say we're at the 2/3 mark, but we're definitely between the 1/3 and 2/3 mark, maybe the halfway point. I forget. Even this game's going to be slightly extended because, again, 100% going for everything. I wouldn't be surprised if there's almost an entire part dedicated to cleanup later on. Though I'll probably be cutting out backtracking when I get to that. Ah, that's a bit overkill with the blocks. You only need the one, but I guess they like hearing that boom sound. And you know what? I can't fault them. But no, the actual reason they do that is that because this is where the two pathways intersect. Going to the right is faster, but going to the left has a bit more items and gold for you in the long run. Though there is one jump here that might not be the most obvious at first, depending on how not skilled but well-versed in platformers you are. Because pattern would say you have to go to the left there to jump off that, but no, you need to jump from the middle platform up to the top one. And that could be admittedly tricky probably for newer players. Mind you, by this point, Guacamelee controls so well that by this point you should probably have a good grasp on what you can reach and what you can't. Unless you're an idiot like me, in which case you just kind of forget, like, I want to do this. It's weird. My focus in Metroidvanias varies, depending almost on the game. Maybe it's because that this game's more combat-oriented approach. Maybe it's because I'm recording the game at the same time. I'm not entirely sure why, but my focus throughout my various Metroid playthroughs has varied, to say the least. Or I guess you could say varied. Like, during the Metroid games, like the outright Metroid series, I have noticed I'm generally more focused than your non-standard Metroid game, like a Castlevania game or Guacamelee here. Though I say that, but I've only played one of the Igavanias, as they're generally called by the fans, even though I just tend to call them Metroidvania because, well, that's what they've been called for so long. Though Igavania is more respectful to the guy who does the Castlevania games like that themselves, admittedly. Also, I just now realized, I know, actually no, because this isn't going to be uploaded like 6 months and later, this is going to be uploaded like in 2 days. I just now realized, with Samus and Simon both being in Smash Ultimate, that'll be the first actual Metroidvania. Huh. Weird. Though now I think about it, I never was the biggest fan of the Metroidvanias where you still had the whip. Like, Circle of the Moon was clunky, admittedly, in a lot of ways, but, you know, it's a good game on its own. Portrait of Ruin, I at least had the girl to work around with. I forget their names. I know the guy is a descendant of the guy from Bloodlines, but I honestly forget their names. But I just didn't like using the whip too much. Used Belmont from the not too good GBA game I'm forgetting the name of because I'm just having trouble remembering things today, apparently. I wasn't too interesting to play with either, but that's not entirely his fault because that game on the whole was pretty bland. The Soma Aria of Sorrow, rather, was easily the best out of the 3 GBA Metroidvanias, Castlevanias. Now, the DS3, that's a tough choice, because those 3 were all, for the most part, really good. I'm partial to Dawn of Sorrow just because I played it the most, but at the same time, I really like the setup of Order of Ecclesia. Oh, hey, Olmec. I forget if this Olmec was actually here in Gold. He probably was, I just can't remember correctly. But either way, I'm at least glad they put an Olmec this far into a dungeon in case you missed something. Because one of the more annoying things in Zelda games, and Metroid games that have more of a dungeon setup like Shantae 1 and 2, is in the case you need to backtrack through an entire dungeon to get one item like a gold Skulltula or a health extension in like Shantae, it's annoying. Yeah, I still can't break a lot of those blue blocks, so I'm noticing a good amount of them in this place. I wonder if there's a purpose to that. Wink, wink, wink. This platforming section always annoyed me, mostly just because for some reason, it's a combination of the sound effect just being grating on my ears, and for some reason, my skill with jumping just goes to shit whenever a platform is moving side to side like this. I don't know why. When a platform is moving up and down, I'm fine, but left to right, brain can't handle. Ball jumping, not working. Though it also is probably a product of me rushing to an extent. Anyway, let's see what we got down here. Oh, hi. Well, 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 look what the cat strike did. Still wearing that mask, eh, compadre? You know, looks good on you. Helps cover up your face. Still the silent type, eh? Well, I'd hate to shoot an unarmed man, but for you, I'll make an exception. Are you kidding me? No more ammo? Not again, will you all? You kind of just wasted it all. Esquiletos, finish off this luchador for me. Oh, thank you for the power-up. Kalaka sends his regards, luchador. He's at the observatory getting ready for the ceremony. Maybe I'll see you there later. If you make it out of here alive, that is. And now we just have a standard fighting room. Although, I do find it kind of wasteful that they get rid of some of the barrels with these skeletons entering the room. Just because you might need that health later on. Oh, they're telling me to use Intenso, which means there's a lot of enemies here. This might be another easy place to get the 20 enemies thing, but I don't think 20 enemies spawn. It's probably closer to 15. Well, maybe actually. Yeah, by now there's definitely been 20 enemies on one charge. So they at least give you ample opportunity to get that achievement throughout the game. One of my least favorite things, admittedly, with achievements, trophies, no matter what the game is the ones where it takes more than one playthrough, or at least more than one, like, save file due to, like, varying routes and choices and such. Another day, another Chuzu statue lost. I've gotten used to it now. All your statue smashing has made me dead inside. Use left and right and B to use the power of the dashing derp. I ran out of names. And we get the dashing derp, which now we can block. We can now destroy blue blocks. However, unlike what the name suggests, it's not an actual dash, it's more so a little charge forward. However, that does allow us to have some extra horizontal movement. So in the case, say, you try to double jump up to something and you miss, you can dashing derp to the side to get more horizontal momentum, and then rooster uppercut upwards to reach the platform. So, admittedly, I do like that these two are pretty useful for platforming's sake. Olmec's headbutt and the frog slam, not so much. But now there's at least a good amount of items we can get along the way. Because if you want to progress, you need to head over to the left where that one checkpoint was. But no, I want to get these items first. Double jump, rooster uppercut there, dashing derp, and you should make it. And hey, a stamina piece. Admittedly, one thing I was wondering about with the sequel that I'm at least now glad to have confirmed is how they would handle the power-up still. Because I was wondering if they would go maybe like a Twilight Princess route where they change heart pieces and stamina pieces, taking 4 pieces now instead of 3, whereas in Zelda it was 5 versus 4. Just for the sake of having more things to collect in the world, and I'm very glad to see that they actually still kept it to 3. Though I was kind of surprised by the opening of Guacamelee 2 for reasons I'll talk about later. And by later, I mean endgame. Either way, let's see what we can buy. Let's get the... Let's see, that's like, what, 5 or 6 things left? Yeah, getting pretty close. There is an achievement for getting... I think it's not everything, I think it's just 20 items in the shop. Because I think there's just enough if you don't get the health containers or something, I'm not sure. I buy everything and it gets me the trophy, so... you should be fine. Going a bit overboard with the shield types, aren't we? That is, I guess, one thing that while it makes the middle to end game more interesting than the beginning of the game, it kind of falls flat on its face with as well. Having all these shield types in one battle can make things a bit slow going, because you have to focus more on one enemy. You can't very much do the thing you've done throughout the rest of the game so far, where in case 2 enemies are on top of each other, you can damage them all at once. If they're all the same shield type, maybe, but if there's like 2 shield types, you're gonna have a tough time killing both enemies at once. I'm trying to remember, though, on my first playthrough, if I had exactly around this kind of stamina and health in Gold Edition. I don't think I did. I don't think I found as much my first playthrough. Mostly because I was more focused on the actual objective, and if I happened to see something along the way, cool. But my mentality for that, for my original playthrough, is an extended version of this LPs thing where I would go back for everything by the end of the game. Because I've realized by now, more so in the Metroidvania games that aren't like outright Metroid or Castlevania, the games are more developed in a mentality where sequence breaking isn't exactly possible, and everything's gotten more or less in one chain of events. At least, that's how they're programmed to be. Obviously, glitches exist where speedrunners abuse something to get things out of order and such, but I'm talking like actual in-game design stuff. A good example rather, of what I mean is Metroid Zero Mission. That game, you can go a lot of different ways and sequence break the hell out of it if you know what you're doing. In this game, you're guided along a single path to get every item in a set order. And that's not a bad mentality, but it makes it feel more like an action-adventure game rather than a Metroid game like it's trying to be. Know what I mean? It's hard to explain. Or at least hard for me to explain. I am not good with words. Also, I'm now realizing that I have to actually backtrack a little bit because there's an item I want to get back there. This is one of those things where I had a feeling when I was playing too, like, I think down is actually progress, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm remembering that correctly. And wouldn't you know what I was? Should have gone with my gut feeling. Just like every high school teacher told me before a test. Always go with your gut feeling. You're probably right if you think you're right. Oh, and hey, it's an Intenso upgrade, so yeah, this is actually very worth going after. Though this actual puzzle is hell. Well, not even hell, this challenge. Though admittedly, I make it a bit harder on myself because for some reason I refuse to hold to the right and stick to the wall. So let's just cut out a few of these failures. There we go. Now I remembered I can stick to the wall. And let's get into chicken form. Jump up here. And I think this is going to be our first full-out Intenso upgrade. And the Intenso upgrades, when you get 3 of them, they just increase the maximum of the bar. The point where you can actually activate Intenso stays the same. Think of it kind of like, for those who have played God of War 2018, the rage meter in that game. Yeah, you can increase the size of it, but the place where you can outright activate it stays the same no matter what. And it will save your ass during some of those super bosses. I probably could have, admittedly, finished this dungeon in another 10 minutes. But I was feeling kind of done with the game for the night anyway, so I just decided to end the part at the next checkpoint. Yeah, getting a little bit trickier with your platforming here, game. I like it. Either way, with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys so much for sticking around for 1,400 videos. And I'll see you guys next time when we're going to continue through the Temple of War and find the boss here at the next celebration, whether that be 190 subscribers, which we are getting kind of close to, admittedly, or 1,500 videos. Probably the former over the latter. See you guys then.